Thank you so much for joining us here at The Research Her, the show working to improve the health disparities for women of color, one topic at a time. I am Alicia. I'm here learning and growing with you as we research our way to well-being. You're back, or you're new. I'm not sure, but welcome to you. Today, we are going to be chatting with Dr. Kristen Nichole, who is a performance artist, okay? A scholar, educator, trainer, coach, entrepreneur, mother, and wife. Check. So, listen in. Dr. Kristen is a South Florida native and graduate of the University of South Florida, where she got her bachelor's of science in psychology. And she also attended the University of Miami, where she got a master's in community and social change. She then continued on with her education because our great sis is very well educated. And she went to North Carolina State University, where she got a Ph.D. in applied social and community psychology. Now, in order to find an escape, Dr. Kristen found her community in pole fitness, okay? Our great sis does pole fitness and dance and offers a space for her to reconnect with her full self. In addition, her doctoral training in community psychology allowed for her to see that pole is a tool for coping with adversity and creating self. Dr. Kristen integrates her expertise in psychology with training as a ACE and XPERT certified fitness instructor to guide her clients and students along a journey of self-exploration and liberation through pole fitness and dance. Okay? So she is the person who coined Polecology. And get into this great conversation with my great sis. Here we go. So I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Like I was telling you a little bit before we actually started recording, I've been following your journey for a long time. So this is super exciting for me. So I like to start off the podcast with icebreaker questions. So the first question that I have for you is, what food do you wish were calorie-free?
Ooh, calorie-free? I would say like potato chips. Like I love baked Lay's Ruffle potato chips specifically.
Do you have a pole dancer who inspires you?
Oh, so many. I will name my top two. So number one, and I've told her this before, Sammy Picone. So when I first started pole dancing, I, like many pole dancers and just people outside the community, I found her platform. And ever since, she's been a huge inspiration to me. I mean, the woman is amazing, self-trained. I love to see her doing her thing. She inspires me to like get creative and do my thing. And I've learned so much from her. In the latter part of my journey, after I had the baby, I learned about another dancer, Carmine Black, referred to as the Queen of Sexy. And she is that queen. She's incredible. She has a dance background, and then she came to pole and teaches people to really just explore themselves and find their own ways of expressing sexy. She specializes in freestyle. And so I'm excited to train with her after the whole pandemic, hopefully, comes gradually to an end and we can resume a sense of normalcy. She gave me a scholarship and I'm just so thankful to her. And she's a new mom. So she is inspiring me even more now.
So I want to ask you, at what point in high school did you find yourself kind of gravitating towards psychology? Because I know in an interview before you mentioned that it was high school that made you realize that, maybe psychology is for me.
Yes. So that's an interesting question because I was on the biotechnology track in high school, believe it or not. So like I was supposed to be pursuing more of like a biotechnology in the hard sciences career. But during that experience, I remember sitting aside with like my biotech teacher and talking to her about my interest in psychology. And she was just like, oh, you should pursue forensic psychology. So I thought about that. Like most people during that time, I was watching CSI, Criminal Minds, all these shows with featuring forensics and forensic psychology and quickly realized that's not for me. And then I guess I began to realize that I had questions about like human behavior and like why we do the things that we do and how are we connected and who are we? I had those types of questions. So I took AP psychology in high school after I realized, okay, I have these types of questions. These are psychological questions. I took AP psychology and that really opened my eyes to the field of psychology. And I just continued to pursue it and continued to ask these questions throughout high school and college. And it's just led me to where I am today as a polecologist.
So at the time when you were in high school, kind of seeing that, okay, I'm appreciating this field, did you see yourself represented?
So my AP psychology instructor was a Black woman.
Nice.
Yeah. So my high school was predominantly Black and brown students and instructors, teachers. So definitely in high school, I had a lot of representation. That started to dwindle as I continued along my trajectory, like my educational path. When I pursued higher education, I started to see less and less women of color, Black women specifically. And that was really disheartening to me because it's like, how can I, a woman of color, see myself in academia? I was just talking about this the other day in my stories. If I don't literally see myself represented in academia. And if I'm feeling this way, then who else? We're often see that dwindling. And that's a huge inspiration to me. And just honestly, I question whether or not my decision to like not remain in academia is related to that. And I think it does have something to do with it. Like me not seeing myself like as a whole, like collectively, seeing my people there. Now I will say like as I continued and decided, okay, I want to continue with higher education and I got my master's and my Ph.D. I did like my advisor, my dissertation committee, she is a Black woman. And I believe she is, I can't remember how many years, but in like maybe a decade, she's like the first Black woman to be tenured at our institution where I got my PhD in like a decade, I think. So it's like, like this is still something that is continuing to happen. And as we start to see more and more people of color, like going to college and getting graduate degrees, we're not seeing that represented on the faculty end. That's definitely a problem.
So retention in the field as you go pretty much higher in academic level. So you went to the University of Central Florida. That's where is it near your hometown, Florida?
Yeah, so I am from Palm Beach County. It's a county in South Florida. And Central Florida is about a few hours away from where I'm from.
And why did you choose that university?
So I felt like it was further away for me to like have my independence and explore my independence while still being like close enough so that if I really wanted to go home, I could, and I wouldn't have to like fly, and pay all that money. It was just enough for me to feel comfortable to be away.
And what part of your undergrad experience made it such that you were interested in pursuing a master's?
Wow, that's a powerful question because I had no interest.
Okay.
Not at all. Like I didn't even think about graduate school until I would say my junior year of undergrad. And it was only because I specifically found the program at University of Miami. And it was like a joint program. So you get your master's while you also get to volunteer with the Peace Corps.
Oh,
and
wow.
My whole thing with like undergrad was traveling. I loved to travel. I loved to just like go and live in other places. So I wanted to be able to do that while still getting my degree. So that's the reason why I chose that program. And I was interested in like the subject matter of the program, which was community and social change. So applying like principles of community psychology to train professionals working in the social sector to like apply these principles and these concepts to help people to like have better community experiences. So the reason I got my master's, the reason I decided to get my master's was because I wanted to go into the Peace Corps, which I did not end up going to the Peace Corps.
I was going to ask that too. So did you go to okay, thank you. Because that was my next question.
So my life changed. Wow. I had my intentions. I applied. I did everything I was supposed to do. And they ended up not allowing me to go because of my severe peanut allergy.
Oh, wow.
The Peace Corps said that I was a liability and where I was going to be placed, it wasn't guaranteed that they could accommodate my needs to like not be exposed to peanuts. So, and like, I believe at the place that I was going to be stationed was a very rural area, and the nearest hospital was like hours away.
May
so
I ask, where were you going to be stationed? Do you remember?
I don't remember the town, but this was in Costa Rica.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah, so when that happened, I couldn't go to the Peace Corps anymore. I still got my master's, and I'm actually glad that happened, because that was when I started to say, okay, well, if I'm not going to go to the Peace Corps for 2-3 years, what am I going to do? And that's when I got into research. And that happened my final year in my master's. So it's supposed to be a 1-year program, but I did it in 2 years just because I was going through a lot. And I remember in my very last class that I took, on like the last day, my professor, who was also a Black woman, seeing her doing what she was doing really inspired me. And I remember that last day in class, she asked, like, so how many of you are thinking about applying to the Ph.D. program? Because they had a master's program, and then they had like a Ph.D. version in community psychology. And there were 2 other people that raised their hand. And it was at that moment I was like, oh, I'm going to do it. That's when I made that decision that day. Yeah.
Was it because you didn't know it was a thing, or you just didn't know it was popular? Like, what was it about it that you had no intentions until that day where it just rung a bell for you?
It was, I guess, when she asked the question, and in the context of that day, I realized, like, I think I'm interested in like answering some of these questions, these research questions that I have. And so when she asked that question, I thought about it, and I was like, I'm going to try. Like, I'm going to try to apply. Like, why not?
Were you able to travel during your master's program?
Yes, I did, but it wasn't for work or anything. It was for pleasure. So I was in a long distance relationship with the person that I am married to now.
Beautiful.
And he at the time was living in his home country, Haiti. And so I used to travel there, and he would travel here to the United States during that time. Yes. So I was traveling, but not for work.
Okay. And did you all get to go any places outside of Haiti, or was that your main place of visiting? Because you're like, well, if I got time, I'm going to see my man.
We did. We actually went to the neighboring country. So there's Haiti on the island of Hispaniola, and it's next to the Dominican Republic. And we went there once for my brother's wedding.
Okay. And so why did you choose the PhD program at North Carolina State University?
They chose me.
Beautiful. Okay. Snaps to that. So what did that look like?
Well, I realize now that a friend of mine and I were being recruited when we went for a conference in North Carolina in like 2015. And at the conference, I think that's when I decided to apply to the program. I learned a little bit more about it. I got an opportunity to meet the person who ended up being my advisor, a Black woman, and then also a professor who teaches in like Africana studies and psychology department as well. He's also a Black man. And seeing that, like, as I was saying, like in undergrad, I really saw the representation dwindle. Like, I did not have a Black professor at all in undergrad. So seeing like these 2 Black people who I began to look up to, and I learned about the work that they were doing and how it related to mine, I was like, I want to be here. Like, if I'm going to get my PhD, then I want to at least do it at a place where like there's at least 2, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's 2 people that I can see myself in, knowing that, you know, this is a predominantly white institution. So like this small space, it's not going to be reflected in the larger like microcosm of the university. So just seeing them and interacting with them, I was like, yeah, I want to. Given that, I did apply to like 7 programs. And in all of my 7 programs, my university where I got my degree was the only one that accepted me. So when I say they chose me, I mean, like, they literally chose me. Everybody else was like, no.
Okay, I see. So what was it like going from being a Florida girl to now moving to North Carolina? So what was it like moving, and how did that look, knowing that you were in this committed relationship and now you have to switch locations? And was that an issue for you?
It was a big challenge. I don't have much family here, and I'm very family oriented. I have a big family on both sides, and then now my extended family on my husband's side. So that was hard. Okay, it was definitely a challenge. And at the time, my husband, we were not married at the time. We were still dating, and he was still living in his country. And so when I moved out here by myself. And that first year was so hard. I was depressed. And then I realized this is the part where my journey just kind of like so many changes in my journey, as you will see. Mm-hmm. But that's when I realized, like, I don't think academia is for me. Mm-hmm. I realized it's the first semester. And so I wanted to quit actually several times. I know many of us think about this a lot when we're pursuing PhD because it's just very, very challenging and it takes a lot from you. So after one semester, I was like, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. I can do this. But at that point, that was around the time that my husband and I decided to get married. He ended up moving here for me, and having him here to support me made all the difference. Because remember, I had no one. I didn't really have much family. I have a cousin who lives here with his wife and kids, but I'm used to like being around. Like my cousin lived down the street, my other cousin lives down the street, my mom, you know, everybody's there. Like I'm used to having that. So when he came here, it made all the difference. And I think us being together is what really helped me to persist and get my degree.
Mm-hmm. And did you find that you weren't building any strong relationships on campus? And I know that family is very important, but sometimes you can find friendships that are as strong as some of your relationships that you have with your family. So could you find those in your program?
Yes, I did. I found a few people in my program, and we're still tight to this day. One of them, she became a really close friend. We actually have the same name. We were in the same lab and everything. She's also a Black woman. And unfortunately, she passed away early before she could get her degree. Yeah. So I really did have that. And it helped as well. It did. It helped as well to have her and to have some of my other friends. So definitely cultivating, creating like my own support system. I realized that I had to do that, and I had to let people in, which is really difficult for me because, like I said, I grew up like my best friend is my cousin. That's how I grew up. Like my friends are my cousins. Okay. So I grew up like not really letting people in, and it was a challenge because I had to do that if I wanted to survive here. I had to open up to people, and I'm just grateful that I got to open up to my friend before she passed away.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's something you want to talk about, but how was that experience of, I'm sure you probably were in the same year of now, you know, you are in your PhD program and you're getting ready to, I'm assuming like getting ready to start your dissertation or something of that matter. And did you have a difficult time wanting to continue the program after losing someone you were so close to?
So, girl, let me tell you how this happened. So there's been I would say this journey has been so tumultuous. So many things, life just happened. I mean, I got pregnant by surprise. You know, I had a baby, and then my husband lost his mother. She passed away when I was pregnant, and then I lost my friend. So she passed away after I finished my qualifying exams. She passed away while I was like so close to finish. Like I had written my dissertation. I just had like just to edit and like maybe reframe some ideas and like add some more citations and things like that. And then she passed away. And then the way she passed away is unclear to me. So I have a lot of questions around that, and I'll never be able to ask her those questions. So it was really hard. Like I had felt like, wow, I'm here, I'm finishing, and then it's like something else happens. Oh, I'm pregnant. Now I'm going to be a mom, and I have to come to terms with that and embrace that. And then when I get my strength up again, I have postpartum depression. And then I get up again, my friend passed away. So it was like so many things happening. And I think, again, just having the strength of like my family, having like my creative therapeutic outlet pole, and like my sense of purpose. At the time, I had started my business, Polecology, and that gave me a huge sense of purpose. All of these things just like helped me to get through. I mean, I'm still coping. I'm still grieving because it's new. She passed away in March.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, that's very recent.
It's very new. So every day I just try to get one day at a time, you know.
And that is all you can do. And that's important to do. It can be very overwhelming during a time like this, just figuring out how do you grieve when you don't even have the opportunity to grieve in the capacity in which you would have been able to had the world been open up, you know. I'm very happy that you're opening up about this and feel comfortable sharing this with me, because I'm sure that there are so many people out there who can relate to losing someone in the past few months, and to show that you have the strength to get through it. It's a beautiful thing.
For sure. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So you have this bundle of joy, this life, this beautiful life that you brought to the world. She's the cutest thing, like, period. But I'm sure it was challenging working on your PhD as a mother. And did you ever feel that you were not supported in academia at the time?
I think the biggest resource is a person, and her name is Dr. Alon Hope. She is was my advisor. Look at me, thinking I'm still a student. She's my advisor, and she is a Black woman, and she's also a mom. Mm-hmm. So she's a mom of two. So when I had my baby, she was pregnant with her second. So just seeing her, and again, that representation, and that alone was like enough to show me that I can do this. Mm. I think if I did not have that, if I didn't have her, just her existing and being who she is and being a mom, being open about her motherhood, I don't know if I would feel like I could do it. But I wasn't the only one because of her. Now, in terms of like students, I think students in the past have gotten pregnant in my program, but it's not, it's not like a common thing. Like I didn't just like friends exactly like, oh, I'm pregnant. I think the assumption is when you decide to get your PhD, you're married to your degree. You know, you don't get married, you don't have a baby. And that's just not how I did it. That's not how my advisor did it. And I think all are okay. It's, as women, it's for us to decide what to do with our bodies and how to shape our lives in the way that we see fit. And I feel like you should never feel like you have to sacrifice something you want to get your degree. Like you shouldn't have to sacrifice having a family if that's important to you to get your degree. I've had conversations with faculty, women faculty, who are like, you know, I listened to my friends and family and my colleagues that said, hey, you know, wait until you get tenure to have a family, to get married. What if it's not possible? What if by the time you get tenure, you're not able to have children? And then you're resenting your degree, that who's not a person. You can't even have a conversation with your degree for, you know, closure.
You're speaking to me. I really would appreciate you going more in depth about that, just off of the strength of like, I love this idea of like resenting your degree because it is so true. You end up doing all of this work and you have to pick. And you are saying that you should not have to put aside one thing that you truly love for something else that you truly love. It shouldn't be or, it should be and. Can you go more into detail about why do you feel like your advisor was such a great resource for you?
Yeah, because she embodies that intersectionality. So we've learned from POC, people of color in political science, like Kimberly Crenshaw, legal studies, Kimberly Crenshaw, and then like in psychology, scholars have been like, oh, you know what, this intersectionality thing, like the idea of there's no or, like you said, it's only and, like we are this, that, and the third, and that's okay. And we need to understand that our experience is integrated with all of these identities we belong to in psychology. We're applying this as well. And I use this theory a lot of intersectionality in my work in understanding how youth of color, youth who are descendants of immigrants to the United States, who are descendants of political activists who are navigating their identities and identify as political activists themselves, resting on this idea of my identity is at the intersections and like, what does that mean for me? The reason why she was such a huge resource to me, because she embodied that. Like, you know, she's a Black woman, she's a mother, she's Anne, and she's embracing Anne. And like, she didn't reject something that she wanted because of something else. And I think if we really think about historically these stereotypes of Black women and these social norms of Black women and what it means to be a Black mother, you're supposed to sacrifice for everyone, supposed to take care of everyone, right? We know Big Mama and Madeir and these Black women, these stereotypes that we see, this doesn't have to be all, you know, you don't have to sacrifice for everyone just to keep everyone okay, to keep the family okay, because if you're not okay, your family's not okay. If you're not okay, your community's not okay. And this is really like the thesis of my work. I tell my clients, who many of them are women, are Black women, women of color, I tell them like, you deserve to like embrace your sensuality in a space that feels safe for you. You deserve to like have time to yourself, even if it's just once a week, you know, as a mom, to just be on your own and have something for you, whether that's whether that's reading, whatever. She embodied the intersection of being a mom, being a Black woman, being a badass scholar.
Is the fact that academia is such a closed-minded environment one of the reasons that it's so off-putting to you?
I felt like what I wanted to do with my life, what my purpose was, what I was being called to do, was more practice-oriented work outside of the ivory tower. I'm not interested in doing research that then has to like trickle down to like communities and then like trickle down to individuals in over a 15-year period. I'm not interested in this voyage of getting my work to the people. Like, I want to work with the people. That's what I do. And then I got really into fitness, pole fitness specifically, as like my own personal hobby. The first year of my PhD program was very depressed. And then I got married and I got happier, and I started pole dancing the year afterwards in 2018. I noticed like how amazing I felt, like having this time for myself. I then began to play with the idea of relieving stress, turning my stress into powerful stories, stories of resilience, stories of agency, stories of being free and embodying that on the pole. And that's what I do with my work, Polecology, like trying to help and coach my clients and soon to be students, because I'm working on something behind the scenes on how to pole in a way that you show that this means something to you and how to communicate a message of this meaning making.
Define what Polecology is for the people.
Okay. For the people. So Polecology is pole fitness in a way that combines psychology and movement. So I'm coaching liberation. This is my slogan, coaching liberation through movement and psychology. That's what I do. I feel that this, and it's not just me, like pole dancers will tell you this. Pole is liberating. It's liberating on so many levels, because here you have this stigmatized apparatus that people in society are saying, if you do this, we judge you and we think you're this type of person. But here we're saying, like, we don't care what you say, period. And I have a right to decide how I want to use my body, what I want to use as a fitness tool. And it's really like grounded in these themes of sexuality and sensuality. No one in society wants to see a woman who has reclaimed her sexuality, but in pole and in sex work, like, it's okay. And so with my work, I'm saying, like, you get to combine fitness with expressing your sexuality and your sensuality. This is real. This is fine. This is normalized. And that's liberating for so many people, not just women, but femme, queer people, men, cisgender men, right? So many different people pole dance or do some type of pole fitness.
So talk about your first time pole dancing.
Oh, so my very first time was actually when I was at the University of Central Florida. Shout out to Lo. I had a roommate who took me to my first pole dancing class. And we had a Groupon or something. And we went, and it was not like, it wasn't a serious thing. This was like probably 2012.
Right.
You know? We went for fun. And I remember it was fun, but it wasn't something that I was trying to like continue or do. It was just like a one-time thing. I didn't take it seriously at all. Because that was my first experience pole dancing.
Okay. And then when were you liberated?
I would say that didn't happen for me until after I had my baby, which at the time I had been pole dancing for a year already. But when I first started pole dancing, I was not pole dancing. I wouldn't even call it dancing. I was doing pole fitness. Like, I was not interested in, expressing my sexuality in the very beginning. I was actually very, I would say, whorephobic, and I was afraid of people calling me a hoe because of how I dance and stuff. I was very aware of that, and I didn't like that. Wow. I didn't start becoming liberated from the shackles of being afraid to be called a hoe until I'll say after I had my baby, really.
And that is interesting for me because you have the most beautiful pregnant videos and pregnant pictures. So I felt like when I was looking at some of the pictures you were taking while you were pregnant, it just showed you that you only get a snapshot of someone's life. You don't truly know what mental barriers they are going through. I love that you're sharing that you truly don't feel like you were being sexy and all, being your full self with pole until after your child, because When did you start Polecology?
In November 2019.
Okay, so were you still pregnant at the time, or was that before?
No.
Okay.
This was like close to a year after I had my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, I had her December 2018.
Okay.
So I remember like right after I had my baby and I started, or you know what, this might have been before, I can't remember, but there was a time somebody like, people would always say that I danced. They were like, men would be like, you're sexy. And it would bother me.
Really?
I'd be like, because I still look at those videos and I don't see it. I wasn't trying, but maybe it was just because, you know, it was in there. But
I love it.
but like I was so afraid of men just reading me as sexy. And then I think about it, I'm just like, that's so stupid. Why am I even pole dancing if like that bothered me? But I had to do my own self work, you know, and that's when it became liberating for me, when I began to realize, like, you know, maybe I am a hoe, and that's okay. Like, I don't
My
care
man not complaining.
Good. Okay. And like, I feel good. This is me. And I had to really like undo that and like really figure out why I was being bothered. And it was because I was letting society, or my ideal of society, right? Like my perception of society, dictate how I live my life. And that's not okay, because when you do that, you're a slave. You're a slave to society. I don't want to be nobody's slave. I am not nobody's slave. When I rejected all of this, that is when pole became liberating for me.
Nice. So we're talking about it. You had a lot of internal conflict as far as like your identity went. Do you feel like you had this kind of stamp of being a PhD student, right? But you were a pole dancer. Did you ever find that there was a time those two just did not fit well in the same box for you, where you were struggling? Did anyone ever approach you in your program and make you feel less than, or did you have any experiences like that?
They never said it to my face.
Okay.
Like I in the beginning, I kept it private. Like I didn't, you know, say, hey guys, I'm a pole dancer, you know, yay. I kept it to myself. But I mean, my platform on Instagram was public. I had like maybe 1,000 followers. It was just, you know, the people who were there. No, I never had those experiences because I wasn't open to showing these experiences with these people. So.
Okay, fine. I just wondered, because I do know that I've struggled with the identity of like being the researcher and wanting to be clear that I can be my full Chicago bred self while still being a chemist, and those two can exist in the same space. And I struggle with that because I do realize that my personality type is not represented in the field of chemistry.
You know, because I was still like, oh, I'm not a hoe. I'm better than, because I'm doing this and I'm not doing it all sexy or whatever. Even though people were still thinking that I was sexy.
Yeah, I mean, because it is something sexy, in my opinion, about pole dancing, period. And it's, even if you're just doing fitness, it is a sexy fitness, because you could be doing hot ass jumping jacks, which your titties bounce doing jumping jacks. So it's that, you know, to each his own, you know, to each his own. But, you know, it's a sexy form of fitness, all in all.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's more than okay.
Okay, so you were in your second year and things were going fine. You were getting your fitness on, you know, getting body right, body tight. But then you get pregnant, you have a baby, and you end up with, what is it called? Just say it for me, because thank you, sis, because and then I got this little thing on the side where I tried to pronounce it for myself. Diastasis recti. Did I say it right?
I mean, I could be saying it wrong, but I believe it's diastasis recti.
Okay, fine. I got that over there. So you ended up with this condition, which pretty much means that you have these two sides of your abs, right? And now they are no longer connected, and you have to go through, you know, physical therapy. What gave you the courage to go back to dance?
Wow. My physical therapist, I didn't think it was possible. First of all, I want to start off by saying, like, none of my healthcare providers even hinted to me that I could have this. I didn't learn about this until like social media is how I became aware of it. And I think that's sad. I think it's important for, you know, your healthcare providers to like inform you of this possibility that it could happen, to test you and to recommend postpartum physical therapy, even if you don't have it as like this is what you do after having a baby, because I think it's so beneficial, even if you go for a few sessions, because your body changes so much. And PT was so incredible for me. But my PT is the reason why I felt like I could do it again, because I couldn't do anything after I had my baby. And I was scared that I would never be able to do the tricks that I like to do, to dance the way I want. But she was like, no, you can do this. Like, keep training, be consistent. And so I did. I did every week. I went to PT for about 4 months every week. And then I did my homework every single day. I think I probably maybe skipped, like on my hand, 5 homeworks in that entire 6 months. So I did PT every week for 4 months. And then for 2 months, I just did it on my own when I was released. And that is the reason why I'm able to do what I do today, 100%. I could have done more damage to my core if I would have just went right back to it without doing the proper exercises to build up to that, because pole is so much core, so much. This is like intense. So it took a lot to get to that point for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, you talked about after having your beautiful baby girl, it took you about 6 months to get back to pole dancing, and how you were very judgmental of yourself for taking that long. Can you talk a little bit about that? How you were saying you've seen other moms, they're back to pole dancing after a month, and then there's your experience where you need to go to PT.
Mm-hmm.
How did you mentally get through that experience of not being so harsh on yourself, knowing that you were going through PT and trying to recover your body? How did you not be mean to yourself during the time, knowing that you have this love for pole?
I definitely had to interrogate how I was engaging with social media. And I want to be specific with that language because, as we know, or maybe we don't know, but social media, like use of social media, has definitely, like psychological research has linked it to like negative mental health outcomes. It can like exacerbate the negative things that we feel about ourselves, our insecurities. But one thing that I've been learning in like reading these psychological research studies, from my own experience as well, it's not so much like social media itself, but it's how we engage, the ways in which we use social media is important. Are you using social media to further your own self-deprecating thoughts? Like, are you comparing yourself to people who do not have your lifestyle, who have a completely different story from you? Are you following only a certain type of person that shows, the body type that we hold on a high pedestal in this country or your country? And I have to hold myself accountable because I have a body that people idolize. In many ways, I embody like this standard of after pregnancy. So I have said this before and I have to hold myself accountable. Maybe I need to say this more, but like, please don't limit yourself by following people that just look like me. Follow people that also look in many different ways, that have different experiences, that have experiences that you can connect with, because representation matters. Follow people who bring you joy. Follow people who motivate you to be yourself, who inspire you. And so I do this. I definitely have to hold myself accountable for being an influencer and not wanting, I don't want people to look at my content and be like, what is wrong with me? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I have a responsibility for sure, but we all have that responsibility to engage with social media in ways that don't harm us,
Yeah.
And I was doing that. I was definitely like following people that had this ideal experience that I'd idolized of postpartum, and I had to stop. Like I went through a time after having my baby where I just took a break from posting. I just would like post like motivational things in my stories, or like, I was not on social media a lot after I had my baby for like the first 6 months or something like that. And it helped. That break helped quite a bit. And even now I'm having to, come back to that and take breaks, which is hard because I do it. It's become like my business now. So it's definitely challenging, but now I find that I'm engaging with social media in a way that is harmful for me. I'm going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it means I have to unfollow some people, what I'm saying?
It's very
even
important.
If I have to, cut back. I have to protect me. You know what I'm saying? And I definitely encourage everybody to just be critical about how you're using social media.
It's important. It really is. There was a point in time where I took 9 months off of social media. I didn't even think about it. It was a beautiful thing where you get so used to not having it and just living in the day to day. Social media has a lot of bads that people talk about, but it has so many beautifuls. What inspired you to start training others through pole dancing? And when did you decide that that was something that you felt? Because we deal with imposter syndrome, right? And like, what makes me the person that should train others on this beautiful fitness?
I felt called to do this work. I've always felt like I value teaching. I feel like I am a teacher. So both of my parents are retired teachers. So I kind of grew up just like in this educational environment where like we're teaching each other, and my mom's doing her lesson plans at night. Teaching is a huge part of my coaching. I feel like I had something to give back because of my own experience. I've reached a point in my journey where I'm ready to give back. Once I realized this is what I want to do, I began to take it seriously, and I studied for my ACE, the American Council on Education certification. So I'm certified pole fitness instructor by Expert Pole Fitness. I took the necessary steps. I continued to work on my education as a fitness professional. And long story short, I felt like I had something to give back and I could help people.
Okay. And do you feel that your training and certification with ACE and XPERT conflicted with grad school in any way, or were you able to balance that? You laugh.
Oh, yeah. My epiphany of like, this is what you're meant to do, it happened while I was in graduate school, which made it really hard because here I have this purpose and it's motivating me to like do things, but it's conflicting with like this big dissertation that I have to write. So it was a huge balance that I never managed to balance, to be quite honest with you. But it got to the point like I tried to like stop working on, my business Polecology, but that didn't work out for me because I just kept wanting to do it. So I said, okay, you can work on this thing if you set aside specific hours for it. And then you set aside specific hours for your dissertation. So I started to do that, and things conflicted, always. But I just kept trying. And I took everything one day at a time. With multiple, deadlines postponed and things rescheduled, I finished and I got my certifications as well.
Wonderful. You now do train people. So first, who do you think Polecology is for?
Polecology is for individuals that want to pole. They want to make meaning as well. One step of the process is I want to pole because it seems cool, but also like I want to pole because I want to tell my story. Like I want to pole with the intentions of it meaning something to me, and I want to do self-work through this process. I want this to be a liberatory praxis for me, right, to transform my life. So anyone who wants that, Polecology is for you. I like to use a person-centered approach. So I really work with people and give them what they want. So long as our values are aligned, our goals are aligned. I had someone reach out to me and they're like, I want to lose weight. And I had to be clear with that individual because I don't track weight loss.
Okay.
I don't use that type of measurement. And I feel like if that's what you want, that's what you deserve to have. But who am I to like take your money and promise you weight loss? And I can't guarantee that because I'm not certified in weight loss. I'm not a nutritionist. I do have my values and I do have my approach. And I think it's in both of our best interests for you to get what you want and for me to use the approach that I have. So I'm just honest about how I do things.
And do you have any challenges that you face when pole dancing?
Many.
What are some of those?
I'm way more critical of myself in terms of my technique specifically and my style, way more than I was in the beginning. Because in the beginning, it was a hobby. And I was just trying to have fun while working out and doing cool stuff. So I didn't care if my toe wasn't pointed in this move. I didn't care if this transition was off. But now I am like way more critical of myself because people respect me and they look to me as someone who is really doing it. So it's like, I got to do it. And it puts a lot of pressure on me. I think it comes with the territory. I just started this new series on my platform where like every Thursday for Throwback Thursday, I reflect on like my progress and the journey. And it's a moment that I take to look back at old footage of me just like poling for fun and just remember that this is what got me here. This is why I do it. It's not to be the best pole dancer in the world and to, get booked at these mega events. It's to feel something. And so long as I feel something and it means something to me, I'm doing it. And so I'm doing this reflection every week to check my intentions and hold myself accountable for like being grounded in what makes me feel good. Definitely a work in progress.
Absolutely everything is, okay? So it's not just pole dancing, it's all of life. Do you have an opinion on how to normalize polecology and make women feel more comfortable with pole dancing as a hobby?
I think we need to see people telling their stories. I think when you tell your story, that's power right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's how things become normalized. And I think, we've seen J-Lo pole dance in, what was it, the Super Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
As we see more and more representation of pole in the media and just more people getting poles at home, like I think in people polling with their kids, I think these are ways that it becomes normalized. But at the same end, I think if we normalize pole dancing, we need to also normalize sex work because pole comes from sex work.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes people, like the process that I had to like go through and I still have to go through with unlearning these oppressive standards of women. You can't be this, you have to be that. And being afraid for someone to call you a hoe or to call you a term that you find offensive because it's rooted in what people think of you. And so I think so long as we recognize that pole dance is fitness, we also have to say, okay, and this comes from sex workers and we have to lift them up. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be like, oh, I think this is something that I would do. Like, you don't have to see yourself in it to like respect that this is an avenue that someone has chosen for themselves.
Right. I'm not a physicist, but I got mad respect for physicists.
We need to apply the same thing to all women in what we do, because we're out here trying to live our lives in the best way that we want to, and we have that right.
Honestly, your research talks about that. Like the research that you did for your PhD talks about reclaiming narratives. And
definitely.
Yeah, I would love for us to kind of talk a little bit about your research. Can you start us off with just telling us, you got your PhD in applied social psychology and community psychology. So can you break down what each one of those are and then tell us a little bit about your research and how you go into describing how people have reclaimed their narratives with poetry?
Yes, I'm more on the community psychology end of that spectrum.
Okay.
And community psychology is really about understanding people in context, understanding that our experiences in community, our experiences in society, what is happening politically, all affect our well-being, who we are and what we experience at the individual level. These relationships matter. So my research, Reclaiming My Identity, is a story about how young people use poetry to reclaim themselves. I had an opportunity to visit a writing program for young people in the Northeastern United States. And at this program, it was predominantly Black and Brown youth who are children of immigrants and immigrants themselves. They had this space where they get to use poetry as a creative outlet to navigate identity, to figure out who they are, to ask questions, to dig into their experiences. And from what I saw and what they allowed me to share with them, I saw that this was very impactful to their youth development. Just being in this culture of who I am is up for me to define was very powerful, especially as we think about all of the things that we talked about in this interview before, like stereotypes and, these standards of like, a woman has to be this or that and not and. And here you have the space where young people are asking these questions themselves and wrestling with this. But they're saying, I get to be me. Whatever that means to me, I get to be and. And so I saw this in practice, and this is what I wrote my dissertation about. And much of this really has to do practically with what I do with poets. It's about reclaiming. It's about telling your story. It's about owning your body and owning your ideas and thoughts and using that to make meaning with what you do. This work, my research, and my business of psychology is really concerned with making meaning from our experiences through reflection. Like, I really practice reflection with Pole and reflection with flexibility. And I encourage that to my clients and audience as well, to reflect, because it's a powerful tool to take ownership of self-development.
That's so beautiful. I'm so appreciative of you. I have one last question. And what is next for you? So what's next for Polecology? What is next professionally? Just tell us what's next.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. I am starting a Patreon. Yay! So Polecology is becoming the school of Polecology.
Nice.
And it's an online school for flexibility, pole fitness, and dance. And I'll have 3 tiers to start. The first is a podcast type tier. So it'll just be me in conversation with future guests, and sometimes just myself, just sharing my ideas, like a lecture, like a mini lecture, but we'll call it a podcast. And then the 2 additional tiers are my classes. So the second one is called Reflective Flexibility. And this is just like putting my ideas into practice, like making your flexibility training a reflective process with journaling and different lessons on flexibility and how to transform our lives through this process. And then my second class is pole and meaning making. So a lot of what I talked about earlier, just this why, this question of why should I point my toes? Why should I make these shapes? What story am I telling, right? What story am I telling about myself, about my purpose? And how do I just create and transform my life with these amazing tools? I'm excited about this.
I'm excited about it too. You inspire me as an entrepreneur. You inspire me as a researcher. You inspire me as a pole dancer. And everything about you is super inspirational. I've had a pole for maybe about 1.5 years now, and I have not broken it out of the box yet.
No,
it is still
it's coming.
But you just like gave me that little push that I need to like just be like, you know what, girl, put it up. Let's go. I know, like, I plan on moving soon, so I was afraid of installing it because I'm like, I'm moving out of this place soon, and do I want to install it? But yes, it can move. It can go with me.
Yes,
and if it doesn't, guess what? My next pole is going to be the one that you use if it doesn't go with me. So it's all gravy. I just want to say thank you so much for, sharing your story and sharing so much with us. You were very vulnerable, and I just think you're an amazing person, and your journey is only beginning, and I look forward to the growth of Polecology and just seeing you be a household name. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. I truly appreciate you hearing me and wanting to share me with your audience and share my story. So thank you. Thank you so much.
So tell me she isn't gold. All of the greatness, okay? So you can find Dr. Kristen at thepolecologist.com. There you can schedule a one-on-one with her, or you can see her at the Polecologist on IG, where she is active in training and teaching us, giving us great gems every day. And all of that is going to be in the show notes, of course. You can find me at theresearchher.com or at theresearchher on the socials. And until next time, I holla.